Our speaker tonight began Press for Truth in 2006. And if I understand correctly, it consisted of just himself. Am I right about that? Okay. Yeah. Now, since then, it has grown into a team of videographers, investigative journalists, and political activists who are, quote, committed to covering issues which the mainstream media is not willing to touch. In the last 5 years, they have made 5 documentary films, including The Nation's Deathbed, United We Fall, Into the Fire, The Turning Point, and the Toronto hearing on 9/11. Their films and videos have gained hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube. Their Facebook page has beyond 250,000 likes. I think it's safe to say that Press for Truth has become the gold standard for alternative news coverage. So his presentation is entitled Speak the Truth, How Journalism Died and Why You Should Resurrect It. So please put your hands together and help me welcome to the stage Dan Dix.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you so much for coming out. When Phil asked me to tell the personal story of how Press for Truth came to be, I was honored that he would ask me to come out and give this talk. And what it is that we do at Press for Truth is we work to expose a lot of the elite organizations and individuals, really, who are some of the people who are behind the fiat currencies, behind the surveillance state that we see coming around all around us. So this is what we work to do. But Press for Truth, although we started it in 2006, the story really begins, I would say, probably about 10 years earlier. In the mid-90s to the late 90s, there was something amazing going on online for anybody who was aspiring to be a journalist at that time. There was a shift taking place, really. And there were, for anybody who was aspiring to be a journalist back then, you'd pretty much have to go through years and years of school to get a piece of paper that said you were capable of doing this. You'd also have to, often people would sell out to corporate sponsors just to get views. And you'd often have to rely on hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of technical equipment just to be able to broadcast your message. Well, all of a sudden, all of this has changed with this piece of technology right here. All of a sudden, in our fingertips, we now have the ability to not only communicate all over the world with anybody else who has one of these. We can, this has a camera on it. This has a microphone on it. We can use this to broadcast our message with satellites. This essentially amounts to the world's encyclopedia in our back pocket, and we have access to information. So things changed. There was a time when the aspiring journalists would try to make it or kind of break onto the scene to make a name for themselves so they could say they arrived on the main stage of journalism. Well, I think today that's no longer necessary because me being from Press for Truth, I can tell you that I haven't made it, but what we are doing is we're just currently making it. So back in the early days, I started looking into who are some of the people we wanted to, who we wanted to expose as far as the journalism we wanted to do. And I started looking into a lot of people we used to call back then triple threats. Anybody who was in the Bilderberg Group, or the Trilateral Commission, or the Council on Foreign Relations. These are very powerful think tanks. So at the time, I thought I had a pretty good grasp on who it was we wanted to expose and what we had to do. But then this happened, and everything changed. I all of a sudden saw how the mainstream media was reporting on things, and I didn't really like what I was seeing. And coupled with all the research I was doing over the years into the people I wanted to expose, I knew that I wanted to do this better. I wanted to try to do a better job than the mainstream media. So for the next 5 years from this point, I dug deep into research and just continued to look into the topics that I wanted to expose and that I felt were necessary to expose. And I did that over the next 5 years. I started going to these kind of meetups, meeting like-minded people just like we're doing right now. Did that all the way up till 2006, when all of a sudden the Bilderberg Group was coming to Ottawa, Canada in 2006. And these are the guys who I've been researching and looking into for the past 10 years at that point. So I thought, perfect, this is a great opportunity to be a journalist, to throw on that journalist hat and to go down there and document this event and to do the job of the mainstream media. So I borrowed my brother's camcorder at the time and just dove in head first and said, okay, I'm going to go there and I'm going to be a journalist. And something happened at that Bilderberg meeting that was pivotal for me. One of the Bilderberg members, actually, while no other journalists were around, no protesters anywhere, actually walked out for a stroll. And there he was. I had the exclusive shot. He's staring down the barrel of my lens, and I knew I had this shot. And right there, I knew, this is awesome. This is something I like. This is something I want to do more of. I don't know how I'm going to make money or how I'm going to be sustainable or how it's all going to work, but I like this. I want to do more of this. So after that, I went home and I started Press for Truth. And in 2006, on July 4th, I started a YouTube channel. It's free. We started a very basic website at the time. It only cost $30 for the year, I think it was. Bought a cheap camera and set out to start becoming an independent journalist. And so by 2007, I was in the middle of researching a lot of various trade deals going on in Canada, namely the Security and Prosperity Partnership. And a bunch of people organized a protest in Quebec, in Montebello, Quebec in 2007. And so I thought, perfect, another event I can go and I can try to document this and do a better job than the mainstream. And it's a good thing that we did go, because when we got to Montebello, an incident occurred where three Quebec police officers were caught acting as agent provocateurs. They were dressed up to look as, well, violent people who were trying to incite violence. They, in fact, ended up getting caught. Some of these photos showed that they were actually wearing the same police-issued boots as the Quebec police who were arresting them. So it later came out that, yes, they were indeed police. Anyways, this was an international incident. And so I knew that along with this incident that was documented in the footage we filmed, well, we had more than just a regular YouTube video here. We felt we had the making of a full-length feature documentary film. And then, just like that, all of a sudden, we got home and decided to do that. And before I knew it, we were into making documentary films. And we put out our first one, The Nation's Deathbed, which documented that event in Montebello. By 2008, the next year, we were already working on our second documentary, United We Fall. And something incredible was starting to happen. We were starting to secure very high-profile interviews for this documentary. We started interviewing Bilderberg members and members of the CFR and the head of the Canadian Council on Chief Executives. These same people who only 10 years earlier I was researching and wanting to expose, all of a sudden we're sitting here face to face with them with the cameras and the lights shining, and we're hitting them with hard questions. And I knew, okay, this is starting to come together. We're onto something here. But then for the next 2 years was kind of difficult for Press for Truth. From 2008 into 2010, I continued to put out video reports documenting the things I felt was important. But for those years, it really felt like no one was watching. There were really no views coming in. It just felt like it was all for nothing. But I continued to just plug away and make the videos anyways. And then in 2010, my whole world changed when the G20 came to Toronto. And we were documenting this event in the months leading up to the whole security apparatus that was being set up. We were documenting this. And all of a sudden, I started getting flooded with hundreds and hundreds of messages and emails and people just offering me support and saying, how can we help you? And it dawned on me that people were watching, people were listening, and it wasn't all for nothing. And then the most amazing thing followed is that people started sending me their footage. And I just got hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage sent to me. People started saying, we trust you with this footage, please show the world what happened. And all of a sudden, I had to set up a P.O. box because hundreds and hundreds of hours of DVDs began to just pour into me. So we knew, okay, well, we're going to take on the task of compiling this into another documentary film. And so by 2011, we released our third documentary film, Into the Fire, which documented everything that went down there at the G20. And so, you know, we put that in 2011. It's 2015 now. We've actually got multiple film projects on the go right now. We're working on a new documentary called The Trudeau Deception. We just put out a trailer for that last week. We've also just relocated to Vancouver, and we're setting up a studio space here so we can increase the production value. So we're constantly trying to evolve things, but it all stems back to we are doing this full time now, and none of this came about because I went to the state indoctrination system. I didn't go to school. This didn't come about from selling out to any state corporate sponsorships or having to rely on hundreds of $1,000s of equipment. Really, the only reason why we've managed to be successful is because we had a real hunger for truth and a willingness to just dive in head first. And that's pretty much all it takes, really. So in a nutshell, that's the story of how Press for Truth came to be. Thank you.